Today we're making happy hearts inspired by artist Chris Uphues.
Welcome back, my most amazing artists. Miss Brown here, coming to you from my studio in Brooklyn. Today's project is inspired by American living artist Chris Uphues. He lives in New York City with his wife, and they work together on a project called Beautiful Days. He is inspired by pop art, by Keith Haring, by just happy things. And he does a lot of images with hearts. So we're going to be focusing today on making happy, silly, fun hearts, because I think right now we all need a lot of happiness and a lot of smiles. And I hope this colorful project will bring a lot of joy to you and to your family. So we're going to need to take a look at the inspiration sheet I've shared. This is from another art teacher, Cassie Stevens. She shared this with fellow art teachers, so I'm very grateful for that. So you can print it out if you want. It's attached to the presentation, or you can look at it on your screen, totally up to you. I will put it in the split screen so you can look at it as well. We're gonna be using crayon to create a resist, and then we're gonna be painting with watercolor. But don't panic, if you don't have a watercolor set, you can certainly use water-based markers and a wet paintbrush to get a very similar effect. So we're gonna show that technique as well. So you need to make sure that you have today 2 pieces of paper, because we will be cutting out and collaging our hearts onto the background. So you need to have 2 sheets of paper. You also need to have an area where you can let things dry if you're using watercolor, or even if you're using marker with a wet brush. So I hope you're going to enjoy this project. I hope you will be inspired by the artwork of Chris Uphues and inspired by his happy-go-lucky personality, and I think we can make some really fun hearts. And by the way, did you know what word is in the word heart? Did you say art? That's right. So I hope you've got heart.
The supplies you will need for this project are pencil, 2 sheets of white paper, watercolors, paintbrushes, a water cup and paper towel, black marker, white crayon, scissors, and a glue stick. All right, so we are at our table and we're ready to get started on our Chris Uphues inspired hearts. So I had printed out the sheet with the eyes and the mouths because I wanted some inspiration, but you can look at it on your screen, you can print it out, or you can come up with your own designs. But I just want to review drawing a heart first, because that's something maybe we haven't done in a while. So when we draw a heart, we're going to start with a curve at the top, and we're going to bring it down, and then we're going to start the second curve, and it does not have to be perfectly symmetrical. Remember, Chris Uphues makes very fun and whimsical hearts. And if you have paper that is really thin and you want to do your hearts with folding, that's fine as well. So I'm going to make a few different types of hearts. And remember, I'm going to be cutting these hearts out after I paint them. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hearts. So I would say try to fill your page depending on how big it is. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use your black Sharpie. And now the fun is going to begin. You're going to start with the outlining. So I'll go ahead and speed this part up because we all know how to outline. Okay, so now that I've traced my hearts, now the fun is going to begin. And I can start in pencil with the faces and go back and trace after, or if I feel like confident and I want to go straight with the Sharpie, that's fine too. But I'm going to go ahead with pencil first, and I'm going to draw some fun eyes. Let's see, kind of like these that are looking one way. And you can put the eyes as close together as you want or as far apart as you want. It's really your own inspiration, but look for the shapes that you know. I'm seeing a lot of semicircles, and this is actually a full circle. Some semicircles, some circles, and what kind of mouth I might want to do. I think I'm gonna give this one a really big happy face. and a smile. And then if I look at the way that you can do a tongue, just with a couple of bumps. There's my first happy heart. And then I'm gonna go down here. And this one I'm gonna pick a different style of eyes. I think this one I'm gonna give these little eyes that are sort of watching. And remember, the sheet is just for inspiration. You don't have to use it. Totally up to you. That one I'm just gonna make a very simple. All right, I'm gonna finish up all my Okay, now that I've finished tracing and designing all of my heart characters, I'm gonna go ahead and use a white crayon. Now, if you don't have a white crayon, you could use any color crayon. I just thought for the magic of Crayon Resist, let's go ahead with white. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some patterns. Now, I'm not gonna be able to see what I'm doing, so there's gonna be some magic involved here. And excuse my broken crayon. So I'm just designing swirly patterns in my big heart. And maybe this guy is gonna have stripes. Think about all the different patterns we've talked about this year. Stripes, maybe some zigzags. Maybe this one has some polka dots. And what's going to happen is the crayon is gonna block the watercolor when we put the watercolor on. And so it's pretty important with your black marker. You want to, if you can, have a permanent marker. Otherwise, you can also leave it in pencil if you want. See some swirls. Okay, so now I'm done with the crayon. I'm gonna get my watercolor set ready. And I'm gonna go ahead, I've got my water container, my paper towel, and make sure you have a little mixing tray. If your set doesn't have it, I just got new watercolors. Because mine were running out, and these have a lot more colors. So remember, you can either take the color straight from here. Let's see, go ahead. Let's see if my crayon does what it's supposed to do. And it doesn't matter if I go outside of my heart because I am going look at that, all my swirlies are coming alive. I'm gonna be cutting these out, so it does not matter. And the more you put in, the more it's gonna show up. You have to press pretty hard with the crayon. Didn't really put any by the eyes. So wherever I had my patterns is going to stay the white of the paper. Now I can even put, if I want my heart to have some rainbow to it, and use whatever colors I want. And remember, Chris Uphues loves lots of bright colors. I'm going to stop and go in with a little bit more crayon before I continue, just to make sure that I went hard enough with my crayon. I'm not seeing. I wanted a few more swirls in there. So if you notice that's happening, just go back and add more. And I'm not doing anything in the background because I'm gonna be putting these on a different background. Oh yeah, there we go. So the more crayon you put on, the more interesting designs you will get. So the crayon acts as what's called a resist. So we call this wax crayon resist. And it works really well with watercolor. Now let's see, should I do a yellow? This one yellow, yellow will be. So see, I had a lot of crayon on that one, a lot of crayon. That's why it's resisting. Because the wax, it can't get past the wax. And then I think a purpley one over here. So I'm just being very free with my colors. I'm letting my paint go outside the edges because I know that I'm gonna be cutting these out. I'll put a little purple in with this guy. And kind of think about tie-dye. Remember we said also that Chris Uphues was inspired by Keith Haring and cartoons of the 1950s. Very whimsical. So I don't know if you know this, but Chris Uphues even has a line of scratch and smell stickers, which of course Miss Brown loves her scratch and smell stickers, as you know. So I think I'm gonna have to get my hands on some of those. And he even had like a little one that was like a pineapple I saw online. It's really cool. All right, so I'm gonna keep adding, having fun with my colors. All right, I'll finish this up and I'll see you back there. Okay, so I'm completely finished painting my 6 hearts and I'm gonna let these dry. Now, if you didn't have a watercolor set, you could certainly color these with marker. They would be just as beautiful. And you could actually take, if you were using the Crayola water-based markers, you can actually, I'll show you how to do it. You can actually activate these with a little water. I'll just do it in the background here. So if you had colored in with Crayola, you can actually turn it into a watercolor. So it's a nice alternative if you don't have watercolor paints at home. That's another way to achieve that, and you can still add watercolor to marker. You could even blend 2 colors of marker together. So that's an idea. Here, I'll do another, you have to let this dry anyway. So if I had pink and red marker next to each other, and I just took a wet brush, just a damp brush, you don't want it super wet, I can go ahead and blend those using marker. So there's a lot of different ways that you can approach this. But now what we need to do is we need to let this fully dry so we can cut it out and make our design. Okay, so I have my beautiful hearts are drying on the drying rack or on a table or wherever you have them drying. And now I'm actually gonna create my background. Remember in this lesson, I said to have 2 sheets of paper. So make sure you have clean water. My water is still pretty good. So I'm just going to do a free painted background. Oh, painted on the wrong page. All right. That does happen. So we're just gonna paint a free background. Maybe you want to make it one color. And again, you could do this with the marker and just a wet brush. If you wanted to put some crayon resist in the background, you could. I'm just going to keep mine plain. But I'm going to experiment with my colors blending into each other. So I'm just rinsing my brush in between because I want to keep a lot of water. Now remember to have a good setup at home. Make sure you have your paper towels. My paper towel back here. So, and you can do as few or as many colors as you want. So while the other one is drying, this one can get done, and then we're gonna let this one dry while we cut out our hearts. So you might have noticed that my paper actually started to wrinkle a bit. Now, I have pretty thick paper that I'm working on, but if you don't have thick paper, just be careful that it doesn't get too soppy wet. and make sure that you have something underneath. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this one dry as well. And while they're drying, we can look at a few examples of Chris Uphues to get inspired for putting the two pieces together. See you in a moment. All right, so I hope you enjoyed seeing those images of Chris Uphues for inspiration. I have let my hearts completely dry and they are ready to get cut out. While I'm cutting, my background piece is actually drying. So I'm gonna go ahead and remind myself when I cut that I'm going to turn my paper, and remember all that extra paint that went outside of my lines does not matter. So I can turn my paper. And if you have thick paper, ask for help. My paper is a little thick, so I'm gonna take my time. Now, when I get to these little small guys, remember we did this in class, cut out a smaller piece so that it's more comfortable to get around your shape. So I can move my scissor a lot more easily. This is gonna really clean up all my edges. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish cutting out all my hearts, and I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so my background paper is completely dry, and it did bow a little bit, so I can just bend it back so it gets flat again. And I'm just gonna start putting my hearts in a fun design. I can have some of them overlapping if I want. Just try out all different designs before I settle on how I'm gonna glue them. I'm excited to see what kind of funny faces you picked. Are yours making you laugh? Mine are kind of making me feel a little silly. I like the one that's kind of sleeping though. But I'm wondering if that one should be down here on a color that isn't so similar. You see how it kind of blends in there? You want to really think about that. What is going to go where to make it stand out the most? So maybe that little guy there. Kind of like my big happy one over here. This one looks like she's laughing. So you have a choice. I did put down glue stick, but if you find that your paper is too heavy for glue stick, you could also use the squeezy glue. So I'm gonna try both. I think for the big ones, I might try the squeezy glue, and for the little guys, the glue stick. So let's try with glue stick first, and then if it doesn't work, we can always go back. So remember, the secret with this is to put the glue on your shape, right? Because if we put it on the background, we might put it in the wrong place. So put a lot of glue stick. And then I'm gonna remember to hold this down, and I'm gonna use both my hands and count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that is gonna be stuck down really, really well. Oh, actually glue stick is working pretty well for this, so I think I'm gonna stick to the glue stick. Do you remember who was sitting next door? Was it the one with the little teeth? I think it was. Okay. And you can overlap. Do you remember what overlapping is? That's right. It's when one piece goes on top of another. So again, hold that down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. All right. I'm going to fill in the rest of mine. I'll see you back here in a minute. I finished gluing down all my amazing little happy, silly, fun hearts onto my background. And now I have to think about if there's anything else I want to add. So at this point, I could go ahead back in with my black marker if I see any areas. And obviously, this is why you want it to be dry. If there's any lines that got cut off, maybe you want this line to be a little bit thicker or wider. And maybe some of your emphasize some of the mouths a little bit more. This is your chance to go over anything that you want to. I think it's kind of fun to make some of the outlines a little bit stronger. But again, just make sure that your watercolor is completely dry before you do this. I think I'm gonna give this guy a little tongue. Make him even a little more silly. There we go. So I feel like my piece is finished. Now it is curling a little bit, so what I could do is I could ask a family member if they can put it under a book to help flatten it out, or I could put it under my sketchbook, or just make sure you ask before you do that, and you probably want to put a paper towel just to be safe, and then put the book over it.
I hope you had a lot of fun making your Chris Uphues inspired watercolor resist. I miss you. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope that this project brought you some smiles and some laughter and a lot of color. Have a great one and stay safe.